My name is Heather Liston. I am a certified financial planner. Someone typed in Roth IRA. I'm just chuckling because I find everyone's always interested in Roth IRAs, but it's great to know. We will make sure to get to that. So thanks for that. Again, I'm Heather Liston. I'm a certified financial planner. And the other credential in the corner of my face there is EA. That stands for Enrolled Agent. That means I'm also a tax professional. I do prepare tax returns, and I can also represent clients when they have problems with the IRS. So those are basically two separate businesses that I have. I also love teaching, and I have taught income tax and retirement planning and other topics at UC Berkeley and a few other places. I've also spoken with other realtor groups, which I always love. I have a sister who is a realtor in Minnesota, and it's a group of people that I always really enjoy. I think one of the things that's special about all of you is often that you are entrepreneurs, that you're expected to not only know what you're doing in the world of real estate, but you are also expected to know how to run a business on your own. That's kind of a lot to ask. So one of the reasons that we want to talk today about retirement planning is if you had an ordinary boring job like a lot of the world, your employer would just offer you a 401k. It would be fairly normal, fairly easy. You wouldn't have to think about it too much. But because a lot of you are entrepreneurs and you run your own business, you have to take care of the retirement planning on your own. So that's one of the big reasons we want to talk about this today. I'm seeing a few more questions pop in. Someone says, how do I structure my business so I can put more than $8,500 a year into IRAs? That's a good question. We definitely have ways to do that. Someone says what area you provide the service. I'm not sure if I understand that question, but I'll just mention I am based in San Francisco, so I'm particularly familiar with California law, but I do work with clients all over the place. As you probably are aware by now, Zoom works quite well. So I'm not limited, just like you're not limited to working with people in any one place. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start the presentation that I have planned. Again, feel free to type in questions if you think of something, and I'll try to check in the chat from time to time, especially if I've lost you. If you get confused about something, I will try to address that right away. So feel free to pop up with that. If it's something about a particular topic I know I'm going to talk about later, I might not acknowledge it right away. But we're going to get started. I hope that you can see my slides right now. I have a big blue and white title slide that says Saving for Retirement, Tax Advantaged Plans for All Situations. So if anybody can't see that, let me know. Otherwise, I'll assume that's fine. This is one of my favorite New Yorker cartoons by my favorite cartoonist, Roz Chast. You'll notice it's a bunch of people just sitting on a sofa saying, Grandpa, tell us again about pensions. So in olden times, when your parents or grandparents were in their careers, very often they would just get a pension. They retire and their employer keeps paying them for the rest of their lives. So that was kind of the easy days, right? Now it's not like that. It's very rare to have a pension now. So that's why we have to be proactive and take care of our own retirement planning. So here are the topics that I'm hoping to cover today. We want to talk about why this is such a big deal. Why is it so important to understand retirement planning? An overview of plan types. Someone has already mentioned Roth IRAs. We also have 401ks. We have other types of IRAs and certain plans that are specifically for small businesses. Then we're going to get into the details of some of those plans, including the 401k, the 403b, the 457, and specific plans for small businesses include the SEP IRA, the Solo 401k, and the Simple IRA. We're going to talk about who's eligible for these, what the income limits are, what your contribution limits are year by year, rules for withdrawals, a special thing called the Savers Credit that I really want to draw attention to. The Savers Credit is a very good deal. It's to encourage low-income people to try to get some money into their retirement plan, even when they don't feel rich enough. It's basically some free money you can get back from the IRS if you're within a certain income limit and you're trying to contribute to retirement. So I really want to focus on that later. Required minimum distributions are very important to understand. And then if we have time, some advanced topics are the backdoor Roth and the mega backdoor. And then I have some frequently asked questions that I put onto slides, things that come up a lot. But again, we're very interested in your questions. Elsie and I will both monitor the chat. So I'm just going to take a quick peek here. Okay, good. On we go. Priorities in retirement planning. This is what I just mentioned. I want to know what you want to know. So go ahead and tell me your questions. Now, why do retirement plans exist? Why is this even a thing? I mean, there are various ways to save for retirement, right? You could just put cash under your mattress. That's a savings plan in a way. So why do we have all these elaborate systems? The main reason is that it's better for everybody if old people have a safe and happy life. As the late Senator Paul Wellstone of Minnesota used to say, we all do better when we all do better. That's why we have laws that make it easier and make it tax advantage to save for retirement. More about that. What makes official retirement plans worth the trouble? Number one is the tax advantages. If you save for retirement in one of these many types of accounts that I've been talking about already, the IRAs, the Roth IRAs, the 401ks, yada, yada, if you save in any one of those, there are tax advantages. None of us enjoy paying taxes, right? As a tax professional, I'll tell you, taxes aren't all bad. There's a reason for them. We hope the government uses them wisely, yada, yada. We want to pay our fair share. And by the way, most people do want to pay their fair share. I think that's kind of interesting as an aside, that studies show that we don't really hate paying taxes so much as we hate the idea that they might be unfair. We want to make sure if we do our part, everybody's doing their part. But that aside, tax advantages are always good. So we're always looking for legal ways to A, pay less taxes over the course of our life, and B, it's always better to pay tax later than now. If you're going to pay tax, it's good to postpone it. It's also good to never pay tax. So those are both advantages of some of the types of retirement plans we're going to look at. The other thing that makes these really important, these official types of plans, in addition to the tax advantages, are the systematic savings. If you sign up through your work, let's say you have an employer, you get a W-2, they offer a 401k plan, that's nice. If you sign up for that, it's going to be systematic. You're going to say at the beginning of the year, please withhold X dollars from each paycheck. Your employer will do that automatically. Your account will build. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to worry, is this a good day or a bad day to invest in the market? And interestingly, when it comes to investing, studies again have showed the less we think about it, the better. Not just because some of us are inherently lazy and we have more interesting things to do, but also because our investments actually work out better if we think about them less. I find that kind of fascinating, that active investors who are constantly trying to figure out what's the next big thing or monitoring the stock market, over time, they do not perform as well as the investments of people who just do it automatically and systematically and stop thinking about it. So that's one great advantage to an official retirement plan through an employer. It's systematic. You don't think about it. You don't try to time the market. You don't forget. And you get the advantage of what we call dollar cost averaging. Some people even say DCA. Dollar cost averaging means we never know what's the right day to invest in the market. So a good way to do it is just to make it completely systematic. And if you put in $100 today, $100 next week, $100 the next week, odds are you will buy in gradually in a way that's relatively advantageous. As opposed to, let's say I decide I want to invest everything today. There's always the chance this is the worst possible day. Right? There's always the chance that the market is very, very high and it's not going to be that high again for a long time. But I can avoid that kind of mistake if I just systematically put in money through my paychecks. So again, these are the two big reasons to participate in an organized and sort of official retirement plan: tax advantages and systematic savings, both super important. Okay, other rules of the universe. It's always good to reduce your taxes. Number two, when you have money withheld from your paycheck, you don't miss it as much as you think you will. One reason for that is when you are having tax deferred money withheld, like in a 401k or in certain types of IRAs, it reduces your taxes right now. And because of that, let's say I said to my employer, withhold $200 from each paycheck. My take-home pay doesn't go down by $200. It might go down by $110 or something like that. Because I'm also having less tax withheld. I'm not going to owe as much tax. So you don't miss the money as much as you thought you would. And with tax deferred payroll withholding, your savings account will grow faster than you expect. I promise you that. If you're someone who hasn't done this before, you may be really surprised. I talk to clients all the time, including yesterday. I was working with a couple in their 60s, and I'm looking through all their accounts and saying, okay, I see this Roth IRA. It's got about $200,000 in it. You know, how did that happen? And they said, you know what? We put in $5,000 years ago when we were young. We were never eligible to contribute again. It's worth $200,000 now. So I love that kind of growth that just happens while you're not paying attention. And with tax deferred payroll withholding or with contributions to other types of retirement plans, they often grow surprisingly fast, and you don't have to do anything except start them up and start contributing. Another rule of the universe, if you do have to pay tax, paying later is better than paying sooner. Reasons to participate. Some of the things I'm going to say are repetitive. I hope you'll forgive me for that. The reason I repeat myself a lot, two reasons. Few people are still trickling in, but also because certain things are very important. And I know I talk fast, and I know some of the material is complicated, so I do repeat important things, and I hope that won't bother you too much. So reason to participate: tax-deferred contributions, tax-deferred or sometimes even completely tax-free savings and growth, the automatic savings aspect, the chance to retire someday, and because it's a valuable part of your compensation. Now, I know some of you are self-employed, but if you have a regular job where someone else is offering you a retirement plan, they put some money and effort into setting up the retirement plan to try to attract and keep good workers. So it is part of your compensation, and you don't want to miss out on it. Let's see. Oops. Sorry, I'm trying to advance. Here we go. Reasons not to participate. One reason not to participate would be you enjoy paying as much tax as possible. You already have so much money you can't imagine what to do with more, or you love your job so much you hope you never have to retire. Quite honestly, those are pretty much the only reasons not to participate in a retirement savings plan. Those were a little silly. So I have been a human resources director also, and a financial manager at organizations. So I have seen myself go through this struggle of trying to get people to sign up for their retirement plan, trying to figure out why aren't they doing it? So the real reasons that I have run into is sometimes people say, oh, I have to check with my wife. She understands the money. I don't understand it. So I'd like to say that's not usually true. You're the smart one in the family. You're the one who's making the effort today to get better informed. So while, of course, I appreciate that you should involve your spouse, if you have one, your spouse or partner, in all major decisions, you can handle it. You don't need to put it off and say, oh, I got to talk to somebody. Another big reason why people don't sign up for their 401k plan when they should is they often get stumped saying, I don't know what funds to invest in. I've seen that happen a lot. People would come to me, they'd fill out the paperwork, they'd be about to join our retirement plan for the company, and then they'd say, oh, I don't know where to invest the money. And again, oh, I better check with my financial advisor. I better ask my husband, or I don't know, my uncle's good at this. Let me come back next week. And I never see him again. It can really get people stopped. So we don't want you to get stopped based on how to invest. And we will talk more about that. So in fact, it's usually better to do something than to do nothing. If you started investing in your retirement plan today and you really didn't think you knew the exact way to invest the money, not a problem. There's a couple of easy things you can do. One of them I'll mention right now, even though I probably have a slide on it. If you're signing up for a 401k or 403b plan, any type of company plan, your company is going to offer you a selection of funds to invest in. It may be daunting. There might be 20 funds, there might be 50 funds. Don't let that worry you. You do not have to understand all those funds. You can choose one or two, or the easiest thing to do if you don't know what funds to choose is these days there will be some kind of target date fund, sometimes called a lifestyle fund or a Fidelity Freedom Fund or a target date fund. There's probably a few other names for it, but basically these are types of funds that include a variety of things that someone else selects. It's a combination of stocks and bonds and government investments, and they decide for you. You just say, hey, I think I might retire around 2050 or around 2065 or 2030. You choose any date you want. They will have a batch of investments that are appropriate for that. That is the easiest way to do it. So if you don't have, a reason to invest in something else, just go ahead. It's better to do something, sign up for the plan, choose the target date fund, and then you can always come back later. If you do have an uncle or a friend or a spouse who's good at investments and you want to change it, you can change it anytime. But if you never get around to coming back and changing it, that's fine too. The target date fund is just fine. So there are more interesting things to do today. Wrong. This is super interesting. I really do find this interesting. The fact that it's complicated, yeah, it is. And the Senate and the government in general and the IRS, they constantly change the rules. Usually it's well-meaning. Usually when something new comes out, like you may have heard of the Secure Act 2.0 or the Secure Act I think we have another update of that. I've forgotten what it's called. There are changes that keep happening. Also, every year they change the amount that you can put into certain types of plans, and they often change the income limits for certain types of plans, things like that. So I try to keep up with those rules. From your point of view, I know you have other things to do. If you've got to show houses, you don't want to be reading some government report. So it can be complicated, that's true. But we will try to focus on the simplest and most important steps. Some of the advanced tricks are not that important. And if you do have a problem, I'll try to give you some resources at the end also. So I'm going to peek at the questions. Someone said, can I contribute to IRAs this year for last year? If you mean, can you contribute for 2023? The answer is no, that's closed. But if you are making your contribution for 2024, you have time. Obviously, 2024 is not over yet. And you can also make your 2024 IRA contributions all the way up through April 15 of 2025. So as soon as we get to 2025, January 1, you could possibly make two contributions. You could make the one for 2024, the one for 2025 at the same time. It's fine to make your 24 contributions now, but you have up till April. And then someone says, how do we get the target date funds? So now there's, as we know, several different types of retirement plans. If you are self-employed and you have a self-employed plan of some type, or you have an IRA of some type, you have a wide variety of investments you can choose. Talk more about that in a minute. But if you have a company plan, you work for somebody else, say, and they have a 401k or a 403b plan, they will give you a list of funds you can invest in. And these days, almost certainly one of those funds will be a target date fund. Again, they sometimes go by other names. They might be a Fidelity Freedom Fund, or they might be I had another name for one a minute ago. But if you use the term target date fund, like if you work for a company and you have an HR department, say to them, like, what's the easiest way to invest? Or do you have a target date fund? Because that's kind of a generic term. And so again, if you have a company plan, there will probably be one of these. If you're investing on your own, you probably can find them also. If you set up an IRA, I would just Google target date funds, or talk to a representative wherever you set up your IRA. If it's at Fidelity or Vanguard or Schwab or wherever it is, you can say to them, hey, I want one of these retirement date funds or target date funds. How can I get one? And they will be able to tell you. Okay, I think someone raised a hand, but I don't see that right now. Sorry. Let me see if I'm missing something. No. Okay, but that's a good moment. Actually, I had told Elsie I wanted to take a quick poll, and we agreed that raising a hand might be a good idea. So let me make sure, first of all, that I know how to see that. I had it a minute ago, and now I don't see it. What I want to know is how many people are self-employed. So, okay, good. I do see it now. So would you please raise your hand, click the raise hand button if you are self-employed. I see two so far, but I bet there's more. Okay. Oh, they're climbing. Going to give it a minute. If you're self-employed, raise your hand. Yep, still climbing. And while we're waiting for that count to settle, I want to mention that sometimes people aren't even quite sure what that means. If you're not self-employed, if you work for somebody else, you will get a W-2 and they will withhold taxes for you. So that's one of the simplest ways. If you are self-employed, you either get a 1099 from people you work for, or you get nothing. You just earn your own money and you manage your own business. You are self-employed if you are a sole proprietor, if you are an LLC. Pretty much you're self-employed if you are a partner in a partnership, and you're self-employed if you work for somebody else but they give you a 1099. All those count as self-employed. Okay, so I see some people are putting their hands down. I think the peak we got to was about 10 people. That's a pretty good number. So we will definitely talk about self-employed. And now I'm going to ask those people, put your hands down. Thanks. And then I'm going to ask, as soon as those go down, I want to know who works for an outside employer, who has a boss and a W-2. So please raise your hand for that now. And I'm going to also mention it's quite possible that you're both. You know, some people are starting their own business on the side while they work part-time for another business, etc. So if you work for another company and you get a W-2 and you have a boss, please raise your hand now through the raise hand button. I see fewer of those. Okay, good. I am also self-employed, by the way. So I really like talking to entrepreneurs who do their own thing. Okay, I'm going to answer one question. We would have gotten to this later anyway, but while you're doing that, I'm going to answer a question. Somebody says, can I contribute $8,500 a year to both a regular IRA and a Roth, or is it one or the other? The answer is it's one or the other. For an IRA, your total contribution can be split between a traditional IRA, which is pre-tax, or a Roth IRA, but the total amount can't be more than that $8,500 you're talking about. In fact, I think it's 8,000. We'll double check that in a second. So that's your total. However, if you have your own business, you can probably set up a company plan for your own business and contribute quite a bit more than what you could put in an IRA. So we are going to find you opportunities for larger amounts of contribution. Okay. Whoops. So key concept. Some accounts grow tax-free. Some are tax deferred. Deferred means you get a tax benefit now, but you have to pay taxes later. Tax deferred ones are very often called traditional because that's the type of retirement plan that was invented sooner. Ones that grow tax-free are often called Roth because it's named after a senator named William Roth. He's dead now, but he came up with this idea sometime around, I think it was the early 90s. He came up with this. And so tax-free ones usually called Roths, tax-deferred usually called traditional. Both are great. So one thing that one of my preaching points always is, I don't want you to get too bogged down. I am going to give you a lot of technical information today, but what I don't want you to do is go away and say, oh my goodness, it's so confusing. I better wait till I can figure it out. No, I don't want you to wait. I don't want you to be overwhelmed. I want you to say, you know what, they're all good. Let's get started. So if you can't decide on this, which one should I do? I would say pick one and do it. They're both great. Or if you really don't like that approach, I would say do half and half, also fine, because they're all good. Okay. Yeah, as I said, tax deferred, usually called traditional, tax-free, usually called Roth. Which one is good? The Roth is great. The tax deferred traditional is great. So we try not to get too bogged down. Okay, someone has asked a more advanced question, which is great. We're going to get into this. She says, I'm a realtor and I have less than $10,000 of income, but my spouse has a very large income through a W-2. We already did our 401k and our Roth IRA and back to our Roth IRA. What should we do for tax strategies? Okay, so that's a person who's going to enjoy the more advanced strategies. Thanks for that question, and we'll get there. Let's see, I already talked about that a little bit. So an overview of plan types. Here's the basic list. If you have a day job with a W-2 and an employer, you will probably have a 401k. Those are almost universal now. When I started my career years ago, it was not assumed. A lot of jobs didn't offer a 401k. Now they almost certainly will. So if you work for anybody else, there's probably some kind of 401k available. A 403b is almost exactly the same thing now. 403bs are for nonprofit and government organizations. They used to be more different. After 2006, there was a law that made them basically exactly like a 401k. So if you have a 403b and I'm talking about 401ks, I'm talking to you. Don't even worry about that distinction. 457 is a little more uncommon. Those are also only at government or nonprofits. They're not super common. So I'm not going to dwell on those unless somebody tells me in the chat that they really need to know more about 457s. A 409A is what we call a non-qualified deferred compensation plan. Those are for high earners. They have to be offered by a company. So those are not for the self-employed person. But for the person who has just said, hey, my husband has this very high paying W-2 job, I would say talk to that employer and find out, are there more opportunities through that job? For executives, and I mentioned I'm in San Francisco, so a lot of my clients are in Silicon Valley. And as you may be aware, some of those people get very, very high compensation packages. People who are executives at Apple and Google and things like that. Quite frankly, even beginners at some of those companies make a lot of money. And so for those people, often they maximize their contributions to their 401k very quickly. And often the employer offers another opportunity, this non-qualified deferred compensation plan. So I would ask the employer about that. Are there any other opportunities? And there's a lot of rules related to that, of course. But one thing about those non-qualified deferred comp plans, sometimes called 409A, is the rules vary a lot. So I'm not going to try to explain them all to you today. What I would say is if your employer offers something like that, ask for the plan documents, what we call a summary plan description, and find out, how does that plan work? How does it benefit me? I would do that if you've already maximized your 401k. So these are the basic employer plans. The individual plans that are available for anyone who earns money, basically a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA. And then for a lot of us entrepreneurs, these are the key plans: the SEP IRA, the solo 401k, and somewhat less commonly, the simple IRA. And by the way, simple doesn't really mean it's simple. It's an acronym. So those are all capital letters. Somewhere I probably have it written down. It's something like Simplified Investment Management Plan, yada, yada. So simple is an acronym. It's not somebody's name. But again, the two most common plans for small businesses are SEP IRA and solo 401k. If you have already started one of these, congratulations, that is fantastic. Try to contribute the maximum amount possible each year. If you have not already started one of these and you're wondering which one to start, I'll get into more details later, but I'm going to give you the simple answer now. If you don't already have a small business plan, you're self-employed, you haven't started anything yet, and you have no employees, the best plan is a solo 401k. If you have employees other than your spouse, you can employ your spouse and still have a solo 401k. If you have any other employees, you're not allowed by law to have a solo 401k. So if you have any other employees, start a SEP IRA. But if it's just you, solo 401k is the best plan. All right, more details. So who is self-employed? Who's employed by a company? We already got that. We know there's some of both today, but more of us are self-employed. So I want to now ask you, again, another raising of hands. Raise your hand if you have a SEP IRA, please. I got to peek at that again. Okay, I see one. Anybody else have a SEP IRA? Okay, interesting. So go ahead and put that hand down. And I'm not going to ask who has a solo 401k. I think no one is raising their hand. I think no one has a solo 401k. Well, that's fun. I may be able to talk you into it today. It's a great plan. I have a solo 401k plan myself. They're easy to manage. They let you save a lot of money in a tax-advantaged way. Okay, moving on. So then my next question, you don't have to raise your hand again, but it also matters if you have a spouse with a retirement plan. Like the realtor who already asked me that question, she's thinking along the right lines, which is particularly in California, but everywhere to some degree, but even more in California. The IRS thinks of you as a unit. You and your spouse are one household. You may be familiar with community property laws, which means if you have a spouse, you basically own everything together for the most part. And the way you pay your taxes is also as a unit. So if your spouse has a retirement plan and they earn a lot of money and you earn a little, or even vice versa, if they earn a little money and you earn a lot in your self-managed business, you can maximize your household savings by maximizing the company plan. And if you have an employer other than yourself, you can maximize that company plan and possibly also save some of your self-employed money. So we're going to get into more details now about specifically how these employer plans work. First of all, most employer plans today, 401ks especially, will have a pre-tax option and a Roth option. It's very common now, almost universal. It wasn't a few years ago. This has changed rapidly. Used to be they were just pre-tax. Now having a pre-tax and a Roth option, very, very common. So you get to choose. But just like the person who asked about, can I put money in two types of IRAs? The answer is that you can put that total, if you're under 50, the total amount you can put in a 401k in 2024 is $23,000. You can put $23,000 in the pre-tax part of the 401k, or 23,000 in the Roth part, which is after tax of the 401k, or you can put 11,500 in each, or 10,000 in one and 13,000 in another. But 23,000 is the maximum amount that you as an employee can contribute to your 401k this year. How you split it up between the pre-tax and the Roth portions of that, up to you. But 23,000 is the max you can put in. Now, if you are 50 or over by the end of the year, you don't have to be 50 at any particular point in the year. You just have to turn 50 before December 31, 2024. If that's true, then you get this $7,500 catch up. So the total amount you can put in your 401k this year is $30,500. And again, if your employer offers the option, you can split that any way you want between the Roth and the pre-tax part of the 401k. In 2025, which is about to start, if you have a regular job, you may already be signing up for how much you're going to have withheld for 2025. So the maximum next year is going up by $500. The maximum you can put in if you are under 50 next year, $23,500. The over 50 catch-up amount has not changed. Still going to be $7,500. So if you're 50 or over for 2025, try to get yourself set so that you're having $31,000 withheld from your paychecks in 2025. Your employer may or may not offer a plan, but as I said, they usually do these days. If someone hires you, they're probably going to give you access to this plan. They may or may not match your contributions. An employer match is a wonderful thing. Very often, an employer will say, hey, if you contribute, I'll add up to 3% of your salary. That's a common one. They can do it any way they want. Sometimes they'll say, if you contribute, I'll put in a flat $2,000. Whatever it is, an employer match is great. If your employer offers a match and you do not participate, that's a big mistake. That's a really big mistake because an employer match is free money. So whatever it takes to get the full employer match, you really, really, really want to sign up. On the other hand, if your employer doesn't offer a match, not a problem. You still want to be involved in it. You're still going to come out way ahead if you are contributing to that plan, regardless of whether there's a match. An employer plan also might allow loans. That is up to the plan, up to the employer. Your 401k document, if you read it, I know they're not super interesting, but I read them all the time. It's called the summary plan document. That is a document that by law your employer has to provide you with. They probably even gave you a link to it at some point and you didn't notice it. It's called the summary plan description. It's abbreviated SPD, and that will tell you certain specific things about your plan, like do they allow loans? I don't recommend you take a loan from your 401k because I really want that money to just grow and grow and grow until you're rich and retired. But if you're worried, like, oh, I don't know if it's a good idea for me to have all this money withheld because we might buy a house next year, what if we need the cash? Then it's helpful to know that maybe your loan will allow you to borrow against your 401k. Use that money for your house down payment and put it back later. If they do allow it, the maximum allowable by law is $50,000. So you might want to check on that. 401k plans sometimes allow loans. IRAs do not allow loans. So that's one important distinction. Another fun fact is about withdrawals from these employee plans. Now, first of all, if I were to ask you, and I'm not going to ask you because I don't want you to worry about having to raise your hand all the time. But if we were in a live classroom now, I'd say, how old do you have to be to avoid penalties for early withdrawal? And I know you're very smart, and this answer has been around for a long time. So someone would pipe up and say 59 and a half, because that is the normal age when you can withdraw from any type of retirement plan without penalties for early withdrawal, whenever you're 59 and a half. But there is a special rule about the 401k plan or the 403b plan from your current employer. If you leave your current employer when you are 55 or older, there are no penalties for early withdrawal. Not everybody knows that. It's sort of new. This came in around 2008. If you're old enough to remember the financial crisis of 2008, it was really scary and upsetting. A lot of people lost their jobs. And if you got laid off in 2008, 2009, and you were over 55, it was a tough time to get a new job. So a lot of people kind of ended up retired without really intending to be retired. And that's why Obama put this new law in place that said if it was from your current job and you're over 55 and you've left the job, no penalties for early withdrawal. That's one advantage to having your money in your current employer plan that doesn't apply if you have your money in an IRA or in an old 401k from an old job. All right, recommendation number one, because I mentioned that these things are complicated. I want to tell you a lot of the facts, but I don't want any of these facts I'm telling you to get you so overwhelmed that you do nothing. So I want to stick to some of the basics. Whatever you do, always get the full employer match. If your employer offers a match, do whatever it takes to get that, whatever you have to save of your own money, because that is free money and I don't want you to lose out on it. Recommendation number two, maximize your contributions, even if you are saving for your children's education. This is a fun fact I want to make sure everyone is aware of, because I know parents, I work with a lot of parents, they will do anything for their kids. And sometimes I'll say to someone, hey, how come you're not maximizing your 401k withholdings? And they'll say, well, our daughter's a teenager. We want her to have enough money for college. So we're putting all our money into her college fund. Don't do that. I appreciate that you will do anything to take care of your kids, but when you are saving for your kids' college, maximize your retirement savings first. The reason I put this diagram here is I know you're probably all familiar with this airline rule, which is if there's an oxygen problem on the plane, you secure your own mask first. You take care of yourself before you take care of other people. Parents are not in the habit of thinking of themselves first, but I really want you to. And here's the reason. If you are applying for financial aid for your kids and you fill out the FAFSA, the FAFSA, that's the government form for financial aid, you're going to have to tell them honestly, what do you earn and what do you have in savings? And those will kind of count against you for financial aid. Your school can't afford to give aid to rich people. So they're trying to figure out how rich are you? Are you deserving of some financial aid? If you have a lot of money in your bank accounts, and or a lot of money in a 529 college savings account, they're going to say, okay, these people have the means to send their child to college. They don't need our help. But if you have a lot of money in retirement savings for yourself, that does not count against you. The people looking at your financial aid application are not going to count the money in your 401k and your IRA. So you are helping your child's chance of going to college if you take care of yourself first. I hope that that part is clear because not everybody knows that, and it's super important. Do not stop saving for retirement just because you're saving for education. Prioritize your own retirement first. Recommendation number three, try to contribute the maximum every year. So again, just to review, always get the full employer match, no matter what it takes. Number two, save for your retirement first, even if you're also trying to save for college. And number three, try to contribute the maximum every year. Future you will thank you. So you may be saying, oh, I don't have infinite money right now. Let me just save a little bit. I'd rather spend my money on candy or whatever. Not that you're frivolous. I know you're not. But we are kind of always in a little, Jerry Seinfeld does a routine about this, about current me versus future me. Current me wants certain things. They don't care too much about future me. But when you're getting close to retirement time, it's really nice to think, you know what? The young me did a good job of saving. I'm in a good position. I have choices now. I have options. I can retire when I want to. So I would say try to contribute the maximum as much as you can. All right, on to the second big category, individual retirement arrangements. I highlighted the word arrangements here because I love fun facts, and I particularly love fun facts that have to do with language. And if I were to ask you, before I put this up, what does IRA stand for? I'm going to bet at least a few people would say individual retirement account. It's not technically true. The New York Times got this wrong recently in a crossword puzzle, so you're ahead of them now. It doesn't stand for individual retirement account. It stands for individual retirement arrangement. Why bother making that distinction? The answer is because however many accounts you have, the IRS thinks of it, you have one big arrangement with them. So that goes back to this question that we had from Paul, who said, can I put the maximum in the traditional and in the Roth IRA? The answer is no, because however many accounts you have one arrangement. So you can put the maximum in the total of all your IRAs. Also, it matters because sometimes people say, well, what if I have an IRA at Schwab and an IRA at Fidelity? Can I maximize both of them? No. What's important is how much total do you have in IRAs, not in each individual account. Same thing is true when you are old, over 73 or 75, and it's time to start taking your required minimum distributions, you don't think of just how much do I take out of this account. You think, how much do I take out of all my IRAs? All right, moving on from the language nerd part of it. IRAs come in various types, of course. It's never simple. Retirement accounts for individual savers. There's the traditional IRA, which is usually pre-tax money. There is the non-deductible traditional IRA. Later, we're going to talk more about why you would bother with that. And number three, and very prominently, because a lot of people are interested in these days, there's the Roth IRA. So traditional and traditional and Roth are two big categories of IRA. The non-deductible traditional IRA is sort of a subset of the pre-tax traditional. Then there's these employer-sponsored IRAs, the SEP IRA and the Simple IRA. Those are sort of hybrids because they are employer plans, but they're also in some ways they behave like IRAs. And then we have the rollover IRA and the inherited IRA. The inherited IRA in particular behaves somewhat differently. The inherited IRA means you didn't contribute the money. Your grandfather or your mother or your neighbor or somebody else made you the beneficiary. They passed away and you inherited their IRA. It's wonderful to have that, but you're not contributing to it. I mentioned here that the inherited IRA is sometimes called the BDA, or beneficiary distribution account. That's specifically a Fidelity term, and I just mentioned it because the more generic term is inherited IRA. But if you have Fidelity accounts, which many, many people do, and you see a BDA, that's exactly an inherited IRA. It's just their terminology. All right, rules for IRAs. So in 2024 and 2025, if you are under 50, the maximum you can contribute to all your IRAs is $7,000. If you are 50 by the end of the year, the maximum is $8,000. Yeah, so somebody earlier had said, can I contribute $8,500? And I said, I want to double check that number. The answer is $8,000 if you're 50 or over, not $8,500. Okay, when can you withdraw the money without penalty? The answer is when you are over 59 and a half years old. And if you take the money out early, you pay income tax, plus you pay 10% federal penalty, 2.5% California penalty, assuming you're in California, which I think you are. These are pretty steep. We do not want to take that money out early. And there's no loans from IRAs. Now, I hope that that's not an issue. I hope that you can afford to put this money in there and leave it for retirement as long as you want, because that is the whole point. But it's good to be aware of. You can't take a loan, and if you take it out early, it's a bad idea. I think a new question popped up. I'm going to take a minute here. Someone says, if I'm self-employed with real estate and also a W-2 employee, can I have a solo 401k and also a regular employed 401k? Yes, that's an advanced topic. I think we were going to get to it anyway, but I will go ahead and speak to it now because I don't want to lose anybody. And then the second question, someone says, can a W-2 earner invest in a solo 401k plan? I think those questions are similar. So I'm going to go ahead and try to answer that now. The answer is we're going to jump back because those are both about 401ks. I'm going to jump back to this 401k picture here with the maximums. So notice, let's assume for now that these two people are under 50 who are asking these questions. The most you can put as an employee deferral into all your 401k plans is $23,000 for 2024. Maybe I'm a super hard worker and I have 2 W-2 jobs. You know, I work as an administrator during the day for some job. They have a 401k. I clean offices at night. They have a 401k. The maximum I can have deferred is $23,000 between the 2 jobs. Another place where that comes into play is if you're moving from one job to another. Like, let's say you work for Salesforce for 6 months, and then you get recruited by Google for 6 months, and they each have a 401k plan. The maximum you can have withheld from your paychecks for all your jobs together during that year is $23,000. So that amount, that employee contribution, that does not increase because you have multiple jobs. But the solo 401k is special because the solo 401k, again, the solo is for people who are self-employed and who have either no employees or they employ only their spouse. That person, and I'll talk about myself for a minute because I am a sole proprietor. I have no employees. I have a solo 401k. So every year I have and I'll admit it, I'm over 50. So I have this total amount withheld as my employee contribution. But then I am also the employer. When you are self-employed, you play two roles. You're the employee and you're the employer. So 23,000 is the max you can put in all your 401ks as your employee contribution, but your employer contribution, again, thinking you're under 50, employer contribution is 25% of your net business income up to a maximum of 69 minus 23. You would think I could do this math in my head, but so if I earn enough money, I can put in an additional $46,000 as the employer contribution into my solo 401k. At your day job, your W-2 job, you're not the employer. So you only have access to this. So I hope that, and this will come up again because I have slides on it, but I hope that I have answered that question. The employee contribution, you get one amount for the whole year. The employer part, if you're the solo owner, the solo 401k owner, you have a lot more capacity to put more money in your self-employed. Okay. Let's see. Okay, we've got a few more questions, but I think they're related to things we're going to get to. So I'm going to go back to kind of doing it in my order for the moment. I'll just mention someone else already said something about what if I put 8,500 in my IRA? Let's be clear about that. 8,000 is the max you can put in an IRA. And that's if you're over 50. 7,000 if you're under 50, 8,000 if you're 50 or older. So get that 8,500 out of your head. That's not a thing. Okay, moving on. Tax implications. If you are contributing to a traditional IRA or a pre-tax 401k, you get a tax deduction right now, which is fantastic. So when I work with high earners, people in Silicon Valley in particular, but sometimes realtors, in the Bay Area, believe me, realtors can make a darn good living if they're good at it. And so I'm going to assume a lot of you are also high earners. If you are in high earning years, pre-tax is great because I want you to save money on taxes right now. Or if you and your spouse, maybe you're still starting your business, but your spouse is a high earner, then you as a family are going to be in a high tax bracket. That's a great time to do the pre-tax option. So you lower your taxes right now. But then with those pre-tax ones, in the year you withdraw from those, after you're retired, after you're 59 and a half, you're taking money out of your accounts, you're going to pay income tax at your ordinary income tax rate in the year you withdraw. That's the tax implication of a pre-tax. Now, the traditional IRA, this is one of those complications. If you have a plan at work, if you have access to a 401k type plan, and your income is over this level, you cannot contribute to a deductible traditional IRA. If you think about this sort of conceptually, IRAs were invented to help self-employed people and people who worked for companies that did not have 401ks. So at this point, you can only do both the 401k and the IRA if your income is fairly low. If you're filing single for tax purposes and you make less than $77,000, fine, maximize your IRA and maximize your workplace plan. If you're married filing jointly and your adjusted gross income is less than 123,000, again, go right ahead, contribute to everything, no problem. And so two complications. These income limits apply only to people who have access to a retirement plan at work. If you don't have a 401k at work, no problem. This income limit doesn't matter. Number two, these apply only to deductible traditional IRA contributions. Now, deductible ones are the valuable ones. So non-deductible traditional IRA contributions, not super useful, except for one thing we're going to talk about later. But these are both really important to know. As I already said earlier, Elsie has promised she's going to distribute my notes later. So you will get a copy of this. So if things like this seem a little confusing, you can look at it again later. And you don't have to take notes if you don't want to. I see some more questions coming in. Trust me, I will get to you. I'm not ignoring you at all. My left eye is on you. Okay, now, these are the income limits for 2025 for a traditional IRA. Basically, they've just gone up a little bit. One more thing to draw attention to, if you are married filing separately, you basically cannot do an IRA contribution. As it says here, if you're married filing separately, your ability to contribute to a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA is phased out at $10,000. You can only contribute to an IRA with earned income. If your earned income is less than $10,000, come on. you're not contributing to an IRA. So married filing separately, do not do an IRA contribution. They're not for you. And that's a whole nother topic. If Elsie has me back, I'd be happy to talk to you more about tax statuses in the future and things like that. But basically, in California in particular, almost always you should do, if you are married, you should file jointly. Married filing separately, especially in California, very bad status. Very unlikely that it makes any sense for you. But do keep in mind, because I have seen people make this mistake. They file separately, they've made IRA contributions. That's not okay. They then have to undo them, which is messy. So this is important. Okay, then the non-deductible traditional IRA. Anybody who has earned income can make a non-deductible contribution to a traditional IRA, no income limits on that. When you do that, the non-deductible contributions you made, when you withdraw them later, years in the future when you're retired, those non-deductible contributions will not be taxed again because you already paid tax on them. You didn't deduct them. The earnings on that money will be taxed in full at the time you withdraw. So that's a little bit of an advantage, right? At least the growth on it is tax deferred. But I would not bother to go through this trouble unless you were going to do the backdoor Roth, which we will talk about later. So next category, Roth IRAs. Now remember, as I said, I'll repeat the important things at the risk of boring you to death. I want to make sure you get the important things. The important things are your total IRA contributions for the year, whether it's traditional, deductible, Roth, total IRA contributions for 2024 or 2025, $7,000 if you're over 50, $8,000 if you're, did I just say that backwards? $7,000 if you're under 50, $8,000 if you're 50 or over. And by the way, I always talk in maximums. If you're just starting out, you've never saved for retirement before, you think, I don't know if I can spare $8,000, contribute $1,000. Okay, I'm very focused on memorizing the maximums and making sure everybody knows them. And I would push you to try to save more. But I don't want you to tune out and say, I don't have $23,000. This isn't for me. I want you to remember, I'm talking about the maximums. If you can't do the maximum, do something, get started. We don't have to do $8,000 to make it worthwhile. Okay, so Roth IRAs, no tax saving now. If I put, and I do, by the way, I do put $8,000 into my Roth IRA, get no savings for that right now. The brilliance of it, though, is I then invest that Roth IRA. I put it in a US stock fund. That's my preference. You can invest it in anything you want. And I do mean anything. Your Roth IRA, your IRAs are yours to invest. You can buy a marijuana farm, you can buy crypto, you can buy an apartment building. But most people just put it in mutual funds. It's the easiest thing to do. So I put my Roth IRA in a US stock fund because I know they tend to grow a lot over time. All that growth is completely tax-free. When I take the money out of my Roth IRA later, when I am retired, I will never pay tax on the dividends, on the interest, on the capital gains, on the growth. So I didn't deduct the money when I put it in, but I will never pay tax on the growth. So Roths are fantastic. All right, limits, as we know, we already talked about this. Your total amount you can put in, 7,000 or 8,000. Withdrawals similar to the traditional IRA or the most 401ks. You want to be over 59 and a half years old to avoid penalties. New twist with Roths, not new, but new to people in this participation probably. Additional rule for Roth IRAs is you need to have had a Roth IRA for at least 5 years. In the business, we call that seasoning. Your Roth needs to be seasoned by 5 years. Now, it does not mean every dollar you put in has to have been in there for 5 years. So let's say you're 19 years old, you have your first job, you don't know if you can afford to save much, but your mom says, hey, open a Roth IRA, it's a good idea. So you open a Roth IRA, you put in $100. By the time you're 24 years old, the seasoning is done. And then later, did I say you were 19? Whatever. After 5 years, your Roth is seasoned. And then let's say you get a good job, you start contributing $7,000 a year for years and years. By the time you take your money out, it's worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. You never have to worry about that 5 years again because you started that 5-year clock when you made your first contribution. So for most people, this is not a big deal, but it is important to know about that 5 years. Okay, the penalty for early withdrawal, same as elsewhere, but also if you withdraw your Roth money too early, you will lose the whole point, which was that tax benefit. There is an income limit for contributing to Roth IRAs. If you are single and your adjusted gross income is more than 146,000, or you are married filing jointly and your household adjusted gross income, or AGI, is more than $230,000, you cannot contribute directly to a Roth IRA. We have a workaround for that we'll get to later. But if your income is less than this, don't worry about the workaround. Don't worry about the complicated stuff. Just go ahead and put money in a Roth IRA, whatever you can spare this year, up to $8,000 or $7,000. And again, I tend to think in maximums, and I've already told you that a lot of my clients are like ridiculously high income. So in the California Bay Area, a lot of people just assume they can't contribute directly to a Roth IRA. That's not necessarily true. Lots of people make less than 146,000 or less than 230,000. So don't assume that you can't. You may very well fit under these limits. Now, I've used the term adjusted gross income, or AGI. That is a specific number that appears on a line on your tax return, and it will say, this is your adjusted gross income. So if you're not sure what that is, look at last year's tax return. It'll be on the front page of your 1040. It'll say, this is your adjusted gross income. That will give you an idea where you fall in relation to this. All right. 2025 income limits for a Roth IRA went up a little bit. Also keep in mind, married filing separately, nope, can't do it. Okay, tax implications. In the year you withdraw from your Roth, you pay no income tax. The growth is tax-free forever. That's a cool, cool thing. All right, now small business plans. And this is super important for those of us who are self-employed, which I think more than half of you are. So as I said, there's 3 basic types that are popular for small business owners. The simple is a good plan. I've implemented it at companies, nonprofit organizations I've worked for, but the SEP and the solo are the 2 that are most important for us self-employed people these days. So I'm going to focus on those. In fact, for the moment, I'm going to skip my notes on the simple IRA. I'm going to go ahead and include it when I send you these documents. And if we have time at the end and you really want to know more about it, we can talk more about it. But I don't think that's the most interesting type. So we are going to jump over here to the solo and the SEP. SEP IRA has been around longer. It stands for Simplified Employee Pension. I write that down partly for myself because I always forget. I always think, is that self-employed? Officially, it stands for Simplified Employee Pension. The SEP IRA has been a long time favorite for self-employed people. The way it works, first of all, with the SEP IRA, there are no employee contributions. So remember that $23,000 we were talking about before, where you can do it at your work job. You can't then do the same 23,000 at your self-employed job, yada, yada. Not an issue with the SEP because there are no employee contributions. That $23,000 thing doesn't come into this at all. The SEP IRA is employer contributions only. Now, if you're self-employed like me and some of you, and you work for yourself and you're the only one, you are the employer, okay? So I don't miss when I had a SEP, I now have the solo, but when I had the SEP, I don't care about that 23,000 because what I can contribute is the smaller of 20% of my net earnings or $70,000. So let's see, 20% of, did this calculation, but I forget, 20%, I forget. Anyway, yeah, what I was trying to figure out is okay, I think it's 350,000, right? For those of you who are quicker at math. Yeah, if I earn $350,000, I can put in $70,000 because that's 20%. If I earn more than that, I'm stuck at $70,000. But 20% of my net earnings is the maximum I can put into my SEP IRA, net earnings from the business. Now, you may be saying to yourself, I don't know what I earn in my business. I have to wait till my tax person tells me. That's fine, don't worry. Because the deadline for contributions to the SEP IRA is in the new year, after you've done your tax return. In fact, I used to tell students, this is the best plan for procrastinators, because if you get an extension on your tax return you can file your taxes legally up as far as October 2025 for 2024. You can make your SEP contribution for 2024 anytime up to then. So if you have a tax preparer, they will tell you, say to them, what's the max I can put in my SEP IRA? They will tell you. If you don't have a tax person, you probably use software like TurboTax. It will tell you. You'll click a button that says, what's the maximum SEP IRA contribution I can make? It will tell you. And then I would encourage you to make that maximum contribution. So it's 20% of your net earnings. These rules look familiar. Withdrawals No penalty after you're 59 and a half, penalty for early withdrawal, same as the other types of plans. Another interesting thing about the SEP IRA, no over 50 catch-up. The reason for that is there's no employee contribution anyway, so not a thing. But this is valuable. You can save a lot of pre-tax money in the SEP. Also brand new, very recently, I highlighted in blue down at the bottom here, there's now a Roth version of the SEP IRA. That wasn't true until this year or last year or something like that. So the SEP IRA, in a nutshell, the employer contributes for herself and her employees if she has them. It's fine to have employees. The point is you are the business owner with the SEP IRA if you're setting it up. You can have employees. It's an employer-sponsored plan, but you could be the only employee at your employer. It's easy to establish. It's very easy. It's inexpensive to manage. In many ways, it's like an IRA. It's pretty simple. You don't need a big corporate, forms and things like that. It allows bigger contributions than a traditional IRA. So remember, as a small business person, you could just put your earned income into a traditional or a Roth IRA, but you're capped out at $7,000 or $8,000. If you're earning good money in your business, you can put a lot more into a SEP IRA. So bigger contributions than a traditional or a Roth, but usually smaller than a solo 401k. It's very flexible. If you want to contribute to it this year and ignore it next year, that's totally fine. Nobody says you have to stick with it once you get started. So SEP IRA is flexible, inexpensive. So disadvantages: no over 50 catch-up, no employee contributions, and if you have employees, you must contribute for them if they meet certain criteria. Here are the criteria. If I employ somebody and she's over 21, she worked for me at least 3 of the last 5 years, and I paid her at least $750, then I have to make contributions to her SEP IRA as well as to my own. But you'll notice these are some significant exceptions. So for example, my brother-in-law used to own a jewelry store. Small family business. He and his wife, my sister, did most of the work themselves, but he often hired fine arts students from the university on a seasonal basis to help him get his Christmas orders out, things like that. Not a problem. The SEP IRA was a good plan for him because they were college students. They were very unlikely to work for him more than 3 years in a row. So he did not have to make contributions for them. He could open the SEP IRA, maximize the contributions for himself and his wife, and any other full-time employees. He did not have to contribute for these other people. But if you have employees who do meet these criteria, who work for you, make more than $750 a year for several years running, you do have to contribute for them in the same proportion you do for yourself. Still probably a great idea. Who's it good for? Self-employed people who have employees, because those people cannot have a solo 401k. And it's especially good if your employees are young, part-time, or temporary, because you don't have to contribute for them. Okay, we're about to move on to the solo, which is currently my favorite way for entrepreneurs to save. I'm going to take a quick peek at your questions to see if I've missed anything important. Let's see. Can we invest in a Roth IRA under a corporation account? I'm not quite sure I fully understand that question. An IRA is usually an individual plan as opposed to a company plan. We're talking about that sort of hybrid, the SEP IRA, which is a company plan, even though it's sort of like an IRA. But the corporation account, if this person is talking about an S corporation is very much like a solo entrepreneur for this purpose. An S corp, it's probably just you. It's not a big deal. Yes, you can definitely have an IRA. Oh, a C corporation? C corps have different rules. So I'm afraid I'm not prepared to really go into the details about that right now, except to say if you are a C corporation, my guess is, first of all, you're earning real money. Wouldn't be worth the expense of setting up a C corp if you were just probably getting started. So with a C corp, I would be looking at one of the more institutional types of plans. Like I'd probably set up a 401k if I had a C corporation. But then the owner, the person or the employee, the owner or the employee, any individual who works for that C corp can have an IRA on the side. The IRA is your personal money. The C corp is a business. The business will probably have a 401k or something like that. Let's see. Somebody says for the Roth IRA is the $7,000 limit, including employer contribution. That is not a thing. Excuse me. A Roth IRA including a Roth SEP IRA, they don't have both employee and employer. So if you are contributing to a normal Roth IRA, there's no employer involved. It's just you, it's your individual account. So the employer thing doesn't matter. If it's a SEP IRA, like we were just talking about, the small business plan, that's not a $7,000 limit. That's a 20% of your net business income limit. And remember, with the SEP IRA, there are no employee contributions, just employer. So I hope I have addressed that one. I'm not quite sure what the issue is. Let's see. Someone says, if I've already contributed the full amount to my traditional and Roth IRA in January of 2024, what should I do now? First of all, congratulations. Doing it early in the year is super smart. Like if you contributed, I don't have the facts in front of me, but as you may know, the stock market did very, very well in 2024. So if you put money into a Roth IRA in January 2024, you've already got a ton of tax-free growth. As opposed to, you're welcome to do it right now for 2024, but you missed out on 11 months of tax-free growth. So doing it early in the year is great. But now the person is saying, well, now what should I do? I already contributed my full amount to my Roth IRA. So the answer is, you contributed your full amount. I would then look and see, well, what other opportunities do I have? You've maximized your Roth IRA, so you've maximized your IRA contributions. But now, are you self-employed? If you are self-employed, you can look at one of these other types of plans. Like you're welcome to do the solo 401k or the SEP IRA in addition to that $8,000 you already put in. Okay. Okay, good. All right. Back to the solo 401k. Again, big picture, this is my favorite type of retirement plan for a self-employed person. Why would anybody not do this? One big reason, you cannot have solo 401k if you have any employees besides your spouse. If you hire your husband or your wife to work for you, that's fine. You can both contribute to the solo 401k. If you hire your daughter, sorry, you can't participate in a solo, and she can't either. You can't fund a solo in the year when you have any other employees. So, but if you don't, and a lot of us don't, right? A lot of us entrepreneurs, we work alone. Solo is the best plan for us. Now, it goes by a lot of different names. Who knows why? But if you heard my phone ring a little while ago, that was E-Trade, because I'm trying to investigate whether that's a good place for a solo. And they put me on hold a long time this morning. I don't even see it here. But when I called them today, they said, oh, do you mean an individual 401k? It's exactly the same thing. Some people call the solo 401k the I-401k, the individual 401k, the self-employed, the solo K, the uni K. All these are exactly the same thing. They're all the solo 401k. So don't let these names throw you off. Who can it cover? One owner, one business owner, and a spouse who works for that business. All right, here's why I like them. It's the maximum amount you can contribute as a self-employed person and protect from taxes. So for a business owner in 2024, the maximum amount you can put in is up to $69,000. If you are 50 or over, you get to benefit from that catch-up, so you get to $76,500. That goes up by $1,000 in 2025. So these are big numbers, right? Now, again, let's say you're just starting out in your business, you earned $20,000 this year. Congratulations, that's fantastic. Don't let this scare you, the fact that I'm talking about big numbers. But I know a successful realtor can make $1 million or more. Sheltering 76,000 of it from taxes would be a huge help. So these big numbers are great. Just keep in mind, if you can't make the maximum, that's okay. It's still a great plan. The things on the right-hand column here will look familiar to you. Totally normal for all 401ks. Right? Penalties if you withdraw before 59 and a half, and withdrawals after that are totally fine. So how's a solo 401k different from a regular 401k? Like the person with the C Corp, I said, open a regular 401k. You're a serious person, you're running a real business, probably a big business, open a regular 401k. But a regular 401k, there's a lot of rules and there's paperwork and things like that. You got to probably get a lawyer involved. You've got to get what we call a TPA, a third-party administrator, things like that for a real big company plan. Solo 401k, very simple. You just contribute for yourself and for your spouse if the spouse works for the company. It's easy to establish, inexpensive to manage. It allows the biggest contributions possible for a business owner, and it's flexible. I can fund it when I want to, If I have some year when maybe I need all my cash for something else, I can just skip it. More advantages, there's an over 50 catch-up. You can have a Roth option. You can sometimes have this mysterious third category called after tax. That's a super confusing term because if you're paying attention, which I know you are, you'll be saying, oh yeah, I know that. Roth is after tax money. It's true. But there's this third category besides pre-tax and Roth that's specifically called after tax. After tax, then this weird category with this confusing name is what makes possible this even more confusing thing called the mega backdoor. If we have time, we'll talk about that later. But the solo, I want you to keep in mind, you got the over 50 catch-up, which you do not have with the SEP IRA, and you have a Roth option, which is great. And because it is a 401k, if you want to set it up and make loans possible, you can. So for example, it's my solo 401k, but if I wanted to, I could put it in my plan documents and say, yep, if Heather ever wants to borrow $50,000 from her plan, she can do that. Personally, I don't set it up that way because it makes it a little bit more complicated and I'm not planning to take a loan from my 401k, but it's a 401k, so you could do that if you want to. All right, contribution limits. So the way this works, and I gave a little preview of this before in answer to a question. With a solo 401k, you are the employee and you are the employer. You get to make two types of contributions. The employee contributions are exactly the same as they would be if you worked for somebody else. You get to put in up to $23,000 in 2024, $23,500 if it's 2025, and an extra $7,500 if you're 50 or over. So you can put that in as long as you earn that much money. Let's say you're 50 years old and your business earned $30,500 this year. For some reason or another, you can afford to save all of it. You have cash from some other source to live on. As long as you make $30,500, you can put $30,500 in. That's your employee contribution. Then later in the year, when you know how much money your business made, you can put in 25% of your net income from the business. The reason I say 25% of compensation or net income from the business is if you are an S Corp, and I know some realtors are, an S Corp is often a single person working for themselves, just like me, but an S Corp is a little bit more complicated because you actually have to officially pay yourself a salary. A little bit more complicated, even if it's just you, but that's why we have this compensation or net income from the business. So employee contribution plus employer contribution. Remember again, with the SEP IRA, you can only do the employer part. And if you work for another company, you have a W-2 job, you can only do the employee part. The solo enables you to put in possibly a lot of tax protected money. Someone wrote, wow, that's impressive how much you can contribute. I agree. It's a good deal. All right, I'm going to peek at questions. Somebody says, can I put income from other sources besides self-employment income into the solo 401k? So not exactly, in that you'll notice this employer contribution is based on net income from your business. So that's an equation. Again, either your tax professional or your TurboTax or software will tell you after you enter all your information, it'll say, here's the maximum amount you can put in your solo 401k. It's not going to also check and say, hey, James had some extra income from investments or his aunt gave him a gift or whatever. That doesn't qualify. However, remember that, of course, money is fungible. So just to try to explain what that means, if let's say I earned, $100,000 in my business, I could put 25% of that into this. Maybe I need $200,000 to spend, so I can't really afford to put all my business money in, but I have money from somewhere else to spend, exactly where the cash comes from to fund your business expenses versus to fill up your account. Nobody cares really where that cash came from. It's just when you're calculating the amount is tied to what you earned in your business, the net income from your business. I hope that answers it. All right, so how do you decide between these two, the solo versus the SEP? I know if I opened it up, people would remember what I said, which is if you have no other employees besides you and your spouse, the solo is probably the best one. If you have other employees, the SEP is probably the best one. They're both great. Don't fret about it. Don't fire your employees if they're doing good work. They're both great plans. So this is one of those things where I do not want you to get bogged down in details. But if you're starting fresh and you qualify, I'd start the solo. It's just some examples of why. Yep, that's the bottom line. I already told you. Okay, how do you do it? And I said it was simple, and I promise you it is. So to get a solo 401k, first you need an EIN. It's an employer identification number. You may very well already have one. You're already working for yourself. Maybe you've already got some legal documents for some reason or another. You may already have an employee identification number. If you don't have one, no big deal. They're free. I love stuff that's free. You just go to irs.gov, you fill out the information, they give you your employer identification number. Why would you want an employer identification number? Number one, so you can open a solo 401k. Number two, it actually can help protect your privacy in some cases. Let's say you're a sole proprietor, you don't have a whole business structure set up that's complicated, you don't have a C Corp. When you're filling out your taxes, you're putting your own social security number on everything, right? Probably on some other things too that you have to set up. You have to put your social security number out there. We know we should keep our social security numbers as private as we can. An employer identification number can then be used in many cases instead of your social security number when you're doing business related to your business. So an EIN is a useful thing to have, and it's free. So don't let that slow you down, okay? Somebody just wrote, you can have a solo 401k as well as a Roth IRA. Yes, you can. And I do, by the way. You can definitely do both of those as long as you meet the criteria for each one. So, and as we know, they each have their own criteria. Like you can't contribute directly to the Roth if your income is too high. But I'm in a position where my income isn't that high. I can contribute to my Roth every year, and I can maximize my solo contributions. Totally fine, as long as you meet the rules for each. Okay, back to how do you get the solo done? First, you get your free EIN. And in fact, you know what? If you don't have one for your business, I'd get one today, even if you're not starting a solo. Why not? It's a good thing for your business to have. Then number two, you choose where you want to have it. My favorite place for solos used to be Vanguard. Vanguard sold their business this year to Ascensus. So that's why Vanguard's not on this list. But all these places offer solo 401ks. The way to decide among them, well, first of all, if you already work with one of these places and you already like it, stay there. I'm not trying to make your life any more complicated. Like, let's say you already have a lot of money at Schwab, open your solo at Schwab. You already know the person you talk to when you call, you know how the website works. Fine place. Excuse me. When I talk a lot, my throat gets dry and I don't want to cough at you. So I'm going to risk being annoying by sucking a candy from it. Okay. So choosing your provider, number one, you already like one of these places because we don't want to make your life complicated. Number two, fees. I do not want you paying high fees. I believe Empower and Ubiquity charge fees, but you are welcome to check that. I know that Fidelity, E-Trade, and Schwab are basically free to open an account. MySolo401k.net just specializes in this. The advantage to them is they are full service. They will help you with anything difficult. They'll let you make more complicated plans. If you have a reason to want to make a sophisticated plan with things like the mega backdoor I mentioned, My Solo 401k are professionals. They can help you with that, but they cost more. The only reason I don't have mine at Fidelity, because I really like Fidelity, they do not allow the Roth option with the 401k. And I like having both the Roth version and the pre-tax version of my solo, which you're welcome to do. Fidelity doesn't allow the Roth. Otherwise, I like them. So if you don't need that part of it, that's a good place. But basically, any of these is fine. If you have another place you work with that does it, it's fine. Just be sure to ask them about fees. I do not want your fees eating up your money. And some places charge more than others. But again, many of these are free. Step number 3, fill out the application, do what they tell you. The Schwab application, you have to print it out. You have to get a notary. The Vanguard one, I remember just doing online when I did it. They'll have their own rules, but these are the only 3 steps. Get an EIN for free, choose any provider you want, fill out the application, and do what they tell you. So if a solo is good for you, it's really not too hard. Okay, this next topic is a little bit different. So before I jump in there, I'm going to peek again and see if I've missed any questions. No, I think we're caught up. So feel free to put in more questions if you want. All right, next topic, the Savers Credit. What I love about the Savers Credit, first of all, it's free money. We already know I love free money. Second thing I love about it is I know it's easy to get overwhelmed and say, like, I'm not rich. How can I do this? This is for other people. And I was like that when I was young. Now, as I already mentioned, when I started my career a long time ago, 401ks weren't even common. So when I started working for companies that had 401ks, we all had to be educated. What is this? Why should I do it? I think most of you probably grew up in a time when you know what they are and you know you should do it. Um, but it's very easy when you're young, especially, or when you're starting a new business, or when your income is low. It's very easy to think, that's for other people. Pension, schmension, who knows? And retirement, I can't even imagine retirement. I'm just trying to get my first job going, right? Very easy for people like that to say, this isn't for me, I can ignore it. The Savers Credit, deliberately designed so that you will not ignore this while you're low income. It's to get people to get started, even when they're not rich. What's so great about it is, if you're not rich and you get started saving, you will get free money. So to be eligible for the Savers Credit, you have to be at least 18 years old, you have to be not claimed as a dependent by someone else, and you must not be a full-time student. I'm guessing this is most of us. We're all over 18, right? And we're probably not full-time students. These might be important, though, for your children. So that's why I like to make sure you know about this, because I am going to push you to try to get your children to participate in this too, if you have, say, young adults. The credit is from 10 to 50% of your contributions, up to $2,000 contribution per year, which means that the total maximum credit you can get is $1,000. Now, what is a credit? A credit is free money. When you do your taxes, I'm sure you know the word deduction. You're always looking for things you can deduct. Particularly if you're a small business owner, you're going to be filling out Schedule C, you're going to be deducting your business expenses. Those are deductions. Those reduce your taxable income, which then reduces your taxes. A percentage of your taxable income is your taxes. Deductions are great. Credits are better. Credits are free money. Credits are after you take all your deductions and you figure out your net income, and you figure out your taxes. Credit just reduces those taxes. It doesn't just reduce your net income like your deductions do. It actually reduces your taxes, meaning you get money back. So the total credit maximum is up to $1,000. Here's how you get involved in this. These are the income limits. Let's say you're married filing jointly. Your joint income, AGI, that's adjusted gross income, if it's under $46,000 and you contribute $2,000 to any type of retirement plan, a solo 401k, a traditional IRA, anything you want, you will get $1,000. That's if you're married filing jointly, your income is less than $46,000, and you contribute $2,000. You will qualify for this 50% credit based on your contribution. That's a fairly low amount of money. I know, $46,000, you'd have trouble making ends meet for a family in California. However, these are not impossible, particularly if you are young or a student or starting a business. Again, maybe your business is very successful. Maybe you have a child who's 24 in her first job. Make sure she knows about this. And one reason I like to talk about this in presentations is the Savers Credit is very valuable. The type of people who qualify for it usually do not have a tax advisor, usually don't have someone helping them with stuff. So I want you to help spread the word. If you have any friends who are relatively low income, say, go ahead and contribute at least something to your retirement accounts. So let's say you are, notice this last column says all other filers. That means single and head of household. So, I'm sorry, head of household is here. It means single. Sorry about that. They title it differently in different places. So let's say you're single, and you make $38,000 in adjusted gross income this year. You can get a 10% rebate. I contribute $2,000 to my IRA this year. If my income is below $30,000, I'd get $200 in free money. Not bad, right? 10% of your contribution. So do be aware, if you are relatively low income, or you know somebody who is, don't just say, oh, retirement funds are for other people. Go ahead and get started, because this is great. All right, new topic, required minimum distributions, commonly called RMDs. I don't know, I can't see your pretty faces, so I don't know if anybody's likely to be in this age yet. Required minimum distributions begin when you are older. This is because we're getting this tax advantage, right? We're putting our money into pre-tax accounts and we're saving taxes right now while we're working and earning money. That makes a lot of sense, right? We want to save money right now while our income is relatively high. Later, when we're old, the whole point was we saved that money for retirement. We're going to start taking it out. The IRS wants to make sure that eventually you do take it out because it's taxable when you take it out. So after you're 59 and a half, you can take money out of your retirement plans without penalty anytime you want after you're 59 and a half. But after you reach another age, like, and they keep changing it, 73, 75, something like that, then you have to take it out. So between 59 and a half and 70-ish, you're totally flexible. You can take it out or not. After you reach your RMD age, you have to start taking it out and paying taxes. So let's look at what those ages are. But first, what do they apply to? Almost every type of pre-tax account has required minimum distributions. Traditional IRAs, SEPs, simples and solos, 401ks, et cetera. And then this odd category of inherited IRAs. We're not dwelling on those because, you know, that's not something that you really have control over. You either have one or you don't. You're not putting your business money into it. But inherited IRAs, what's interesting about them with RMDs is you don't, that doesn't start after you're 70. If you have an inherited IRA, you may probably have if you have an inherited IRA, you probably have RMDs starting now, even though you're young. So inherited ones are a little bit different. They don't start when you're old. They start after you inherit it. Okay, the RMD ages. For many, many, many years, it was 70 and a half. Your RMD started when you were 70 and a half years old. The last couple of years, they made changes a couple of times. So right now, if you were born 1950 or earlier, your RMDs start at age 72. If you were born during the 1950s, they start at 73. For probably most of you, they start at 75. That's a nice long time from now. Again, you're welcome to take your money out 59 and a half. You don't have to till you're 75. That is 15 years. Yeah, it's more, 15 and a half years when it's totally up to you. And so you can take money out, you pay the income tax at your ordinary rates in the year you take it out. But once you're 75, you have to start taking it out and paying tax on it. If it's inherited IRA, all I really want to say about that is the rules have changed quite a bit lately and they're confusing. Even the IRS admits they're confusing. They keep issuing new clarifications. So if you have an inherited IRA, I want you to be aware that you probably have RMDs and also that it's beyond the scope of this meeting. So if you have an inherited IRA, try to talk to a tax professional and make sure you're meeting your RMDs. For other things, your RMDs probably begin at age 75. All right, I mentioned before I'm a word nerd, and there are situations where the words you use for these things really matter. Like very often I will say to someone, did you do a Roth conversion? And they'll say, oh, I rolled my money from here to, I'm like, no, I didn't ask about rollovers. And so it is important to use the right vocabulary. I'm sorry, because I know you've got enough to think about, but these are all different things, okay? For example, a contribution, that's what we've been talking a lot about so far. Like you can contribute up to $7,000 to an IRA if you are under 50 and meet the other requirements. That's a contribution. You can roll over from an old 401k to an IRA. You can roll over from one IRA holder at, say, Vanguard to an IRA holder at Schwab. Those things are non-taxable. They're just moving money from one place to another. So a rollover is not a taxable event. And also a rollover, there's no limits on the amounts. You know, let's say your old 401k has $1 million and you want to move it to an IRA, fine, you can roll it over. You don't have to do that $7,000 at a time. Contributions have both income limits and amount limits. Rollovers do not. Rollovers are also not taxable. A conversion is a taxable event. And a lot of people have been talking to me, especially because it's the end of the year now. A lot of people are saying, should I do Roth conversions for 2024? The answer is maybe, of course. A Roth conversion is when you take pre-tax money and you convert it to Roth money. Why would you do that? The answer is because you want that money to grow tax-free for the rest of your life. But the conversion is a taxable event. At the time that you move money from a traditional pre-tax retirement account to a Roth account, you pay ordinary income tax in the year that you convert. So a conversion is a taxable event. it may well be worth it, especially if you are A, very young, or B, if your taxable income is low. A year when your taxable income is low is a great time to do conversions. For example, let's say that you are just starting your new real estate business. You're going to have no taxable income this year, and you have an old 401k worth $100,000. Could be a great year to convert most of that or all of that. You would pay tax on the full amount that you convert, but you were in a very low tax bracket. Great time to get it converted and never think about it again. So again, conversions, no income limits and no amount limits. If you wanted to, you could convert $1 million this year. The only drawback is you would be taxed on that full million that you convert. Distribution means you're taking money out of an account, probably a taxable event, unless it's a Roth account. Recharacterization is if you accidentally put it in a Roth and you shouldn't have, and you have to change it back. So I know you may not memorize all these. My main point here is that each of these means something different. So if you're talking to your tax advisor and she says, I think you should do a conversion, don't call up Schwab and say, hey, would you do a rollover? They're different things, okay? So make sure that you at least pay attention, and if you aren't sure which one of these you're doing, understand that they're different and that it matters. Okay, ready to get into some advanced topics. And we will do this only if you're really interested, or I want to know which ones. We have about half an hour left, so it's a great time for me to ask you again to let me know if you have questions, because I want to make sure we're using our time in ways that are good for you. Somebody says, do I have a professional referral for a nonprofit setup? I don't. At the end of this, I have some slides where I'm going to recommend some ways if you want to find a financial advisor. That might be helpful. But I don't particularly know someone who does nonprofits. There are pro bono attorneys who will help you with that. If I were personally looking to set up a nonprofit, I would be hoping to get pro bono legal help. And what I would do, if it was a worthy cause, which I'm sure it is I would probably put a note in my own college alumni association. I don't know, if you went to college or where, but if you did, I bet there's some kind of alumni thing where, you can say, hey, does anybody know an attorney who does nonprofit work? That would be my idea. But again, more on that later. Somebody says, my spouse and I own an S Corp. There's no employee, except the two of you, by the way. You are employees, because an S Corp has to have employees. And then she says, so we can open a solo 401k for us. Yes. However, in the near future, if we have employees, do we need to roll our solos to a SEP? Good question, right? And a related question would be, can I have a solo and a SEP at the same time? The answer is you can have both. The accounts can both be open, but you only contribute to one in any given year. So, if you currently, it's just you and your spouse, I'd open the solo, I'd make solo contributions for 2024. And then let's say 2025, you have employees, you can no longer contribute to the solo, leave the solo where it is, let it keep growing with all those advantages, just leave it alone for a while, and open the SEP and start contributing to the SEP. Totally fine to have both and contribute in the year to whichever one is appropriate for that year, but it's fine to leave them open. Great question. Okay, I'll go on then. I'll talk about some of these advanced things, but again, feel free to put in questions. All right. So now we get into some of the issues with silly nicknames. I bet you have heard of the backdoor Roth. It is a very common term that people have been throwing around. They've been very popular since about 2010. Sometimes I think too popular, because I do see people mess up their backdoor Roths. A backdoor Roth is a technique that enables a high-income person to get money into a Roth IRA. First thing I want you to remember is you might not be a high-income person. And I say that because this is one of the mistakes I've seen people make. I'm jumping back to where I had the income limits for a Roth IRA. Okay, these are the income limits in 2024 for a Roth IRA. If you're single and you make less than $146,000, put all your money in, put your contribution into a Roth IRA. If you're married filing jointly and you make less than $230,000, don't even think of the word backdoor. Just go in through the front door and make your contribution. That is the easiest and best way to contribute to a Roth IRA. What I find, I've mentioned a couple of times that here in the California Bay Area, we get used to, we advisors in particular, we get used to people making insanely high incomes. And so many advisors just tell everybody do a backdoor Roth. Then sometimes people come to me and their taxes are all messed up because they did a backdoor Roth and they shouldn't have. They weren't high income. They fit perfectly here and they should have just made a Roth IRA contribution. So look at the front door first. Ask yourself, am I under this limit? If your income is under this, do not even talk about that whole backdoor thing. The backdoor thing is a trick for high income people. And so that's important. I think I have already given Elsie a document I wrote, a very short document called How Not to Mess Up Your Backdoor Roth. If I haven't given it to her to give to you, I will. My point is there are 5 major ways to mess it up that I want you to be aware of, because a backdoor Roth is very valuable, but it's not for everybody. Again, the whole point of it is to help high income people get a lot of money into a Roth IRA. It's a loophole. It's legal. For a while, people worried that it wasn't quite legal. Now it's clear that it is, so it's okay to do, but it's convoluted. So don't do the convoluted thing unless you need to. Okay, so my first warning is it does not work well for people who already have money in traditional deductible IRAs. If you have money in traditional deductible IRAs, pre-tax money that's sitting in an IRA, and somebody says, hey, you should do a backdoor Roth, I wouldn't do it because it will trigger a tax bill. If you do not have money in traditional IRAs, fine to do this. If you have money in a 401k at work, fine, that's not related. But IRAs are all kind of intertwined. So warning number 2, if you have traditional IRA money and you really want to do a backdoor Roth, first thing I would do is try to roll your IRA money into your company's 401k. So I'm assuming right now that you have an employer, you have a day job somewhere, and they have a 401k plan, and that 401k plan allows you to roll in money from other accounts. A 401k plan does not have to allow that, but commonly lately I see that they do. So if I had a lot of money in a traditional IRA and I had a day job, I could roll my IRA money into my 401k, then it's out of the way. I'm free to do the backdoor Roth without triggering taxes. Note that spouses are considered separately. So if you have money in a traditional IRA, but your husband does not, your husband can do a backdoor Roth. Again, in California, we're a community property state. For most purposes, everything you own with your spouse is owned by both of you. IRAs are not. Retirement funds are owned by individuals, okay? Individuals. So if one of you wants to do a backdoor Roth and the other has traditional IRA money, fine. That's not a problem. Another important thing to be aware of, SEP IRAs and simple IRAs, although they're company plans for this purpose, they count as if they are traditional IRAs. I'm already worrying that I'm losing you because this gets confusing, but I'm going to go ahead and keep talking through it and hope that it becomes somewhat clear. So first, why would you go to all this trouble? You just took this class. Some lady in California keeps telling you, be careful, backdoor Roths are complicated. Why would you bother? The answer is because Roth IRAs are great, okay? As we've already said, after-tax money is what you put in now, but they grow tax-free for the rest of your life. So that's pretty great. They also have no required minimum distributions. The money that you put into a Roth IRA, totally up to you. Use it, spend it, don't. You're never going to be forced to take it out. You can leave it to your heirs. It's under your control. But as we know, there are contribution limits. The most you can put in is $7,000 a year or $8,000 if you're 50 or over. We know there are income limits. Not everybody qualifies to put money directly into a Roth IRA. So if you don't qualify, then we get to how do we get in on this? We know Roth IRAs are great. You make too much money. How do you get in on it? Okay, here's the way the loophole works. As we learned earlier, there's no income limits to contribute to a non-deductible traditional IRA. Now, as I said earlier, usually there's no income limits. There's also not a lot of point to it, right? Why would you bother to contribute to a non-deductible traditional IRA? Now we know there's no income limit. So I could put $7,000 into a traditional IRA, not deduct it. And there's no income limit on who can convert from a traditional IRA to a Roth IRA. So what you do is you contribute $7,000 to your traditional IRA, you do not deduct it, and then you convert that money from the traditional to the Roth. And then bingo or abracadabra, suddenly, even though you're too high income, you can't put money directly in your Roth, but you got money into your Roth. You went through the back door. It's a convoluted process. If you do it wrong, it doesn't work. If you do it right, you can make a very high income and still build up your Roth balances, which is worth the trouble for many people. But then you may be saying to yourself, why would it be worth the trouble? You just told me it was difficult and it's only $7,000 a year. Why would I bother? Okay, that's where we get to this other thing called the mega backdoor. Now, one of the confusing things about this, first of all, is that if you search the IRS tax code, you are never going to find the term mega or mega backdoor. It's kind of a slang term. However, there's no really official term for what this thing is. So one really important thing, this mega backdoor only works if your company plan allows it. 401k plans can offer the mega, but they have to allow it. Many plans do not. So you're welcome to tune out. If you already know you don't have a 401k, or you already know somebody's checked and it's not possible, then this isn't for you. But it's becoming common in Silicon Valley. If somebody in your family works for Google or Amazon or Palantir or NVIDIA, Apple, all those companies offer the mega. Also, the University of California offers the mega. And I know you have branches of the UC system down in Southern California. You may well have a spouse or somebody you know that you could tell about this. I worked for UC for a while myself as a Berkeley employee, and we had this very valuable opportunity, and most people didn't know anything about it. So I kind of made it my business to help people get educated at the mega backdoor. Okay, so number one, you have to have a company plan that allows it. But you won't necessarily know that, obviously, because again, the mega is just a slang term. So how do I know if it's allowed? The answer is, if I want to know if a client has access to a mega backdoor, I ask them to send me their summary plan description. We talked about that before. It's often called the SPD. That is the document your employer created to say, here's how our 401k plan works. So you ask for the SPD, then you search for the term after-tax contributions. And then you say, well, that's confusing. Roth contributions are after tax. They are. But this is a third category. It's called after tax. Even though Roth contributions are also after tax, this is called after tax. I apologize on behalf of the whole US government for not making this clearer. I wish we could fix it because it's so confusing. But this is a third category. Very commonly, if you read your summary plan description, you will see, oh, I can make pre-tax contributions. Oh, I can make Roth contributions. Fantastic. But then I want you to look and see, do they also mention after-tax contributions? That's how we know if you can do this. Okay, so what you do is you're going to go ahead and make your $23,000 contribution to your 401k as your regular employee contribution, pre-tax or Roth, that $23,000 or over 50, 30,500. Go ahead and do that. This is above and beyond that. This after tax does not count toward that limit. So the way that it works is the limit for the total amount that can be added to your 401k, that limit is $69,000 in 2024 for people under 50. It's $76,500 for people over 50. Let me see if I have it written down here. Yeah, kind of. So the maximum amount that can go into a 401k plan in 2025, $77,500. Now that amount consists of what counts toward that max. And the reason this says 70,000, this is the under 50 amount. Okay, the over 50 amount is 77,500 in 2025. So what goes into that 70,000 maximum that can go into a total company plan is your salary deferral, which goes into tax deferred or Roth. That's 23,000, possibly 31,000, something like that. Plus any match your company adds. So for example, I think at Amazon, I think they give everybody $11,500. So they've got their 23,500 plus their 11,500 that gets them to, again, you would think I could do this in my head. That's going to be $35,000. Okay. But then You're under 50, you work for Amazon, you've made your maximum contribution, your company matched it, you're still only at $35,000. You've still got $35,000 of room left in that plan. What you do is put that, now, again, we're assuming you have enough money to save. I realize it may already be a stretch just to get to your 23. So if that's the best you can do, do it. This is for high income people who are looking for ways to save even more money. Particularly for the person before who said her husband works for a company and he makes a large salary and is looking for more ways to save. This may be a good thing for that person. Find out if his company allows the mega backdoor. So he can then make his, employee contributions, take care of any match from his company, still possibly put in as much as $35,000 or $40,000 additional to the after tax. Then again, here's the process. So you make contributions through payroll withholding, just like that original $23,000. You fill out the form at your work, say withhold X dollars to the after tax. Then there are various ways the company handles it after that. When I worked for the UC system, the way it works is we had our company plan at Fidelity. I opened a personal Roth IRA at Fidelity. And after I got my paycheck each month, I called our hotline to our special guy at Fidelity. And I said, hey, I just put $1,000 in after tax into my company plan. Please move that into my Roth IRA. And he would do that each month when I called him. Other companies, Amazon and places like that, very often they do that conversion for you. Google does it automatically, I think. You don't even have to ask them. You just put in your after-tax money. The company moves it for you into the Roth. It's a way for a high-income person, there's no income limits on this, high-income person to get ridiculous amounts of money into a Roth. So this is one of those loopholes that helps the rich get richer. And so for those of you who are high earners, I want you to be aware of this. I may sit here privately and think, wow, this isn't fair. These systems were supposed to help, help struggling people have more comfortable retirements. But if I have clients who are high income, I do everything I can to help them out, and I want them to know about this. Now, if you are saying to yourself, I don't know how to understand my company's summary plan description, how do I know? The real way to find out if you can do this and how you can do it is talk to your savviest colleague. If you work for a company that you think might have one, talk to somebody and say, hey, do you know about the mega backdoor? Somebody will say, oh yeah, here's how we do it at our company. Really, word of mouth can be very helpful. Sometimes I'll say to people, do you know how your company handles this? And they'll say, we have a Slack channel to talk about benefits. So not everybody has this option. Now, can you add a mega backdoor to your solo 401k? The answer is yes, you can. And if you make a lot of money, it may be very worthwhile. If, for example, you're a realtor, a high earning realtor, let's say you make $1 million a year, you open a solo 401k, I want you to save as much as you possibly can in tax advantaged money. So you can open a solo 401k with a mega. You will need to talk to a professional, a company that helps set that up. For example, back here on the list of, like if I just opened my account at Fidelity, my solo, I couldn't do it. But if we go back to, where did I have this solo? Places like, we're almost there, I promise. My list of places to do this at. Here we go. When I said choose a provider, if you have a solo 401k, make a lot of money, you want to save the maximum possible, I would contact mysolo401k.net. They can set you up with a mega. There will be fees. It'll cost some money, but it may well be worth it. Ubiquity can do it. Empower can do it. Some of these more retail places like E-Trade and Schwab and Fidelity, I don't think they can help you do the mega, but could be very worthwhile. Okay, let's see where we are. Our timing is working out great. You're asking just the right amount of questions. There we go. Okay, what's new? So I told you the rules keep changing. One thing that's brand new is there's a new extra catch-up for people in the early years of being old. So we already know about the over 50 catch-up, right? The over 50 catch-up is that extra $1,000 for an IRA, an extra $7,500 for a 401k you can start doing when in the year you turn 50. That's been true since 2001. We have a brand new catch-up under the Secure Act 2.0. If you, starting in 2025, so in a few weeks, this brand new thing starts. This says that if you are age 60, 61, 62, or 63, your catch up becomes 11,250 instead of 7,500. Brand new. If you happen to be in one of these age ranges, it's a chance for you to get even more money into your 401k. So that's interesting. I'm going to skip this one because no one's asked me about 529s and I want to get to some summary things. I'm going to peek at your questions again, see what I've missed. Oh, I don't think I've missed anything unless I'm reading them out of order. I hope I didn't just lose you with all that mega stuff. All right, so summary. Now, as I said, I went into a lot of details here today. Some of it is confusing, some of it is complicated. What I don't want is for you to say, it's too complicated, I'll wait till I have time to figure it out. The time to start is now. Retirement savings, as soon as you start, your money starts growing. So I don't want you to get bogged down. I want you to focus on whatever level of simplicity lets you get it going, okay? So in summary, winning strategies. Check your beneficiaries. It's cheap, easy, and free to check your beneficiaries. All of your retirement plans should have beneficiaries. Even if you had a will, your beneficiaries override it. So if someone in your family dies and their 401k or their IRA says James or Jane or whoever inherits that money, they get that money. Now, I've seen this happen lately, so I'm going to tell you a scary story. Someone I know, she had a female partner. They never got married. Even after marriage became, legal, they never got around to it. They didn't get married. They had children together that they raised. They had a house together. One partner died. She just assumed her partner would get all of her stuff. Does not work that way. Her beneficiaries on her retirement accounts had like her long estranged brother. He got everything. And someone I know contacted me about this and said, hey, can you help us find a lawyer to get this fixed? I said, it is not worth paying a lawyer. Whatever is on your beneficiary form, that's what goes. So, if you've got the wrong person on there, they get your money. So I want you to take the time to check your beneficiaries. You don't have to hire a lawyer. You don't have to have a will. You might want to have a will for other reasons, but even if you did, the beneficiary designation is more important. So make sure all of your retirement plans have beneficiaries on them. Super important. And it's free. You can change it right now on your phone. Just log into your account. You won't even be rude. You can do it anytime. You can name as many as you want. If you've got 5 kids, you can leave 1/5 to each of them. It's totally fine. But make sure that your retirement account has beneficiaries on it. Okay, next tips. Never miss out on getting your company match. That's number one, because if you have a 401k and your company is matching it and you don't contribute, you lost free money. Always get the max. Then in addition, try very hard to maximize the amount that you can put in these accounts over time. Know the limits each year and fill them up, but don't go over. So for example, if you're under 50 and you put $24,000 into your plan, it's going to be a bit of a pain in the neck. You have to take that money back out again. So try very hard to know the limit and don't go over it, but get as close as you can to the limit. Again, as we said, if you're saving for your children's education, fund your retirement plans first. Try to stop being unselfish for a minute. Think of yourself first and fund your retirement plans. It will help with financial aid. When you leave a company, you do not have to roll your money into an IRA. A lot of people don't know that. They think you have to roll your old 401k into an IRA. You don't have to. You can very often leave it right where it is. And if you want to ever do the backdoor Roth thing, do not roll your money into an IRA because it will get in the way. If you are a small business with no employees, start a solo 401k. If you are a small business with employees, use a SEP IRA. And I can't stress enough, these should both be very easy. Okay, I realize we're already in December. You may be thinking, oh, I don't have time to think about it. I know how busy you are, but they're really not that hard. Just contact wherever you already have your accounts, Fidelity, Schwab, whatever, not Vanguard for the solo, but almost any place. If you say, hey, it's the end of the year, I have a small business, can you help me open a SEP IRA? They'll be like, sure, you can get it done in a day. So don't be daunted. These are easy plans, and I think you should start funding right away. Okay, if you have an employer plan, this is for someone who's self-employed and has a day job, not uncommon when we're starting out, right? If you have a 401k plan and a small business plan, fill up the employer plan first. As I said here, that's to maximize QBI. I realize that's a little technical to throw in our last 5 minutes. QBI stands for Qualified Business Income Deduction. It's a valuable tax deduction for people who have a small business. It's a little too complicated to explain right now, so I'm going to, on number 7, ask you to trust me. If you have both a day job and a self-employed plan, you don't have enough cash to fill both. Fill your day job plan first, your 401k first. Okay. Try to fund a Roth each year if you can. Like the man who asked me, can I do the solo and the Roth IRA? Yes, if you qualify. So try to do both if you can. Invest your Roth plans aggressively. Remember, the point of the Roth IRA is the tax-free growth over time. So if you fund a Roth IRA and you leave it in cash, you kind of wasted your time. If you fund a Roth IRA and you put it in an S&P 500 or a total US stock market index fund, I hope it's going to triple and quadruple and become enormous by the time you retire and need the money. So I want you to invest that aggressively. And tip number 10, if you have a company with a 401k, find out if they offer the mega backdoor. Even though it's a silly term, you might as well know. Ask if they offer that. All right. FAQs. When should I do this? The answer is now. Another thing I run into a lot as a financial advisor is people will say, oh, that sounds really interesting. I'm going to talk to my husband, or I'm going to think about it next year. Best time, I swear to you, is right now. Putting things off, waiting till you figure them out, forget it. You could be making money while you're figuring it out. So I'd start right away. These are questions I get all the time. Well, shouldn't I wait till after my daughter's wedding? Or don't you think we're going to have a recession? No, I don't care about all these things. Ups and downs happen. Yes, we will have a recession at some point. I promise you that. I have no idea when. We're not going to wait for it. Okay, we're going to do this now. Should you talk to your financial advisor? Yeah. But if you follow the rules I've given you and you have a financial advisor and if they have time to talk to you, please talk to them. If you don't have time, go ahead, set it up. They can always help you change the investments later. A lot of things can be changed later. But no, I wouldn't wait on these things. I'd get started now. Okay. The answer is no. The best time to start was 30 years ago. Second best time is today. I did actually have a client recently say to me, he was only in his 40s, and he said, do you think it's too late to do financial planning? That's a crazy question. There are a lot of things. The main thing I wish I had done 30 years ago is bought real estate. And I know that's your business, so you'll know what I'm talking about. When clients come to me and say, oh, I bought my house in 1991. We paid 35 cents for it. Now it's worth $10 million. I say, wow, I wish I could buy real estate in the 90s. So I can't. Second best time is today. Okay. Don't waste time thinking, oh, I wish I'd done it before. I mentioned this at the beginning. What if I don't know how to invest my retirement money? No problem. Choose a target date fund or a lifestyle fund. You can change it anytime. If somebody comes to you later and says, hey, I think this is the best fund, no problem whatsoever. You can change your investments anytime. So if you don't know, just get started with one of these easy answers. This is me. I didn't come here today to drum up business. So, I'm not saying you have to visit my website or anything, but if you need to reach me for any reason, this is my address. My company is Clarity Financial. My address is www.clarityfinancialca.com. And that's my email address. And then a few resources. I actually think I already gave these 2 documents to Elsie. They're 2 things that I wrote, and they're available on my website for free if you want to download them. One is How Not to Mess Up Your Backdoor Roth. The other is Should I Roll Over My 401k? I think it's both really simple, valuable information. If you do want to visit my website and download them, please be assured I'm not collecting your email address. I'm not going to bombard you. You're welcome to sneak in, get the free documents, and leave. These are the key numbers for 2024. We've already reviewed those. These are the 2025 numbers. These are some good resources. IRS.gov has the final answer to things, so you can use those. And this is related partly to the question of the person who said, how would I find a pro bono lawyer or something like that? I don't know that for sure, but if you're looking for a financial advisor, these are good places to look. Okay, that's enough from me. So I'm not sure if Elsie's about to kick us out. We ended right on time. I'm going to peek at your questions and keep talking, but if Elsie stops us, I understand. She's reminding us that she's going to post the video to YouTube, and she's going to share some documents with you. She's going to share the notes by Monday. Let's see. Oh, someone says her mom is on Medicaid. Can she invest in a Roth IRA? If she has earned income. If your mom has no income, she's not earning any money, she can't. All these retirement plans are basically supposed to be you saving the money that you're earning. So if you're retired, you can't contribute to a retirement plan. But if your mom is earning any money, she's selling a little real estate, she's writing romance novels, she's driving for Lyft, she has a day job, absolutely she can contribute. Medicaid will not interfere with that. Okay, Elsie, I think that's it. So I'll turn it back to you and I'll stop talking. Or I know Elsie's here because she's sending notes, but if she doesn't want to wrap up, I will just say thank you to everyone for coming. I really, really appreciate your good questions and your attention, and I hope I'll see you again in the new year.